the feeling on masks with the quarantine. How are we feeling about covering up? How are we feeling with masks in the public space? Me personally, I have no problem with it. I am maybe a rare bird in this way. I can sacrifice a little bit for the community. I don't mind doing that. You know, I'm happy to do that. I'm a little bit of an empath, maybe to a fault. And so I'm happy to wear a mask. My family, I have some in the range that is, they're susceptible. And so I get them groceries, I help take care of them. They're able to quarantine and they choose to do that because they want to. Lance, you mentioned how people who want to do that, who want to quarantine, more power to them. I have family that's chose to, and I'm happy to help them with it. And so I'm one of those younger cats who quarantines a little bit extra so I can, you know, be safer for them, and I don't mind to do that. So regarding the masks, it's an easy answer for me. Now, it's there's some interesting angles how it's scrambling cameras, you know, our phones and different facial recognition things, but really on a human level, it's been a little bit weird to go out and not be able to get that good breath of fresh air, you know? That feels a little, it's inhibiting, but I'm willing to wait it out if it means I make the point that we do this for just a little bit together as one, and then we don't have to anymore, maybe.
It's not just a little bit. It's months and months. We got 5.5. It's assuming just for this that Trump loses, we still have 5.5 more months of Trump, and Trump has been very ineffective. Testing is down about 15% from its peak 2 weeks ago. So testing is inadequate. Contact tracing is inadequate. I mean, it seems like things are going to largely stay the same. Florida had its most deaths. Florida and Georgia had their most deaths ever today. California had its second most cases ever today. So it's not, things might overall be getting slightly better, but now we got all the back to school stuff that, you know, you got 97,000 sick kids last week. So it looks like, you know, we got months and months of, you know, I like staying home because I can. I have a pension now, so like I don't need to go out to like, you know, to a job. But like I'm lucky, and I, you know, I've got my fucking sit-up machine downstairs. I got my bench machine upstairs. I'm fucking lucky, but we have months and months to go of the current conditions where people who who really don't want to get sick need to continue to take a lot of precautions. And even when we get the vaccine, Trump likes to say we'll have a vaccine by election day, but I don't know, Russia's trying a vaccine starting in October on a mass basis. Everybody thinks that is going to be a disaster, but people like Fauci are saying that the first vaccines may not be any more effective than 50%. That, you know, out of every 100 people who get the vaccine, you know, maybe it'll drop the rate of them getting infected, the number of them, by only half. So we have a long time to fucking go, which is crazy. Which makes me ask the question, because everything I think about, I think of in terms of me when I was 24. And when I was 24, everything I did in my life was, will this somehow help me get laid? And what do you guys think? Are people able to hook up under the current conditions?
Lance, I've been talking, so if you want to go first.
No, it's ruined every aspect of our lives. The lockdown has. Since you've been watching the show, you know that I'm against these lockdowns. One of the things I find, well, first of all, I've got a little piece of information. In the New England Journal of Medicine, there was an article released this week that says that they found out that and I'm not sure, I haven't read this article. I heard somebody on the news reading it. So I haven't verified it, but I've also read other articles that say the same thing. So I've heard this so many times that in so many different medical contexts that I believe this is true. And that is that they found that you can't really give the virus to people unless you sit in a room with them, across from them, for between 10 minutes and a half hour. So it turns out that your odds of giving it to somebody walking down the street or outside or walking to the car or working in the same building with them or passing them at an amusement park or any of the normal activities we do, your odds of passing Wuhan to people are incredibly low. Unless
Dennis likes to call it Wuhan for political reasons.
I caught that on. I try not to laugh too much.
And it turns out that you can laugh. It turns out that, as I say, all the latest studies are showing that we don't really need to wear masks in public because as I say, there's a reverse study on this too. Because they found out that it was being indoors with other household members that spread the virus. That when it really got bad, it was because people were hunkered down together, either in rest homes or just obese people or families where they all have a little asthma. So it turns out that the masks are just symbolic, in my opinion. I would be, right now, we all live in California, so we don't have a choice. You can't go into a business without wearing one. So the game is kind of over. I can't argue against it. I'm having to wear one if I want to buy something. But I think it's largely symbolic, and the compromise as a conservative that I'd be willing to make is that I would be willing to wear the silly mask and look like an idiot because I found one that's more comfortable. Just briefly, I was wearing the N95, which I call racism, because the N95 is not built for Jews. It was pressing on the bridge of my nose. Absolutely. I call racism. As a Republican, I call racism.
Italians too.
The N95.
Well, as a Jew, I've had a nose job, so I'm okay.
You're okay with the N95. Well, anyway, it turns out that the little blue medical masks, the little blue soft ones, are as or more effective anyway. I would be willing to wear those if we could go back to our normal lives. I mean, I would make a compromise. I said, okay, just open every business up that we ever had open. We can go back to our normal lives and forget about the lockdown, and I promise you I'll wear the silly mask. But that's not good enough either. The Democrat governors are resolved to destroy the economy as much as possible, so I guess we can't have that either. And my final statement is this. I've been saying this for several times, so I'll make it as brief as possible. If I was the governor of California, I would say that every human being in California should take 5,000 units of vitamin D. It's been proven in a triple-blind study. I don't know. It was an
double blind.
Yeah, right. Double blind. It was proven in a very exhaustive study on thousands of people that vitamin D deficiency is directly related to your chances of survival.
Should we explain what double blind means? Because we always say it and then.
All right. It means that the people administering the test don't know what they're giving to the patient, and the patient doesn't know what they're getting. So basically, it's completely objective. And some people are getting half are getting placebo, and the people administering don't know which ones are getting the placebo. So there's no possibility of fraud or self-deception. Anyway, the point is that if the governor was to just say, look, everybody take triple the dosage of zinc and vitamin D, both of which have been shown to work, and I'm a radical lunatic and say, look, there is this pill called hydroxychloroquine, and this pill is as dangerous as aspirin. And if every single person took 200 milligrams of this, along with the once a week, along with the vitamin D and the zinc, we'd be out of this immediately. It would all be over.
All right. So, KEDRO, do you want to go and then I'll go?
Yeah, just real quick. Let's see here. Where to start? So the Trump virus. Let's talk about just for that one thing that I do have. I have some connections to folks who are in the medical community. I'm able to hear through the trickle down, and overwhelmingly, it's asymptomatic spreading. I hear that is the cause of this continued contagion, and so asymptomatic spreading could be amongst the family, it could be at work, it could be in the elevator. If your 5 to 10 minute rule, or rather 10 to 15 minute rule is accurate, then there's still going to be a percentage chance, I imagine, in the 1 minute window, in the 30-second window, things like that. If asymptomatic spreading is what it is, plus your study, then if we just lock down all as one, we don't storm capitals with guns because we're upset about it. We don't yell at each other in the market and confront each other breaking the 6 feet boundary, if that's what works. Then Rick did a test. I'm being a little overly romantic. If we do this for a month or two, then...
Wait, Rick attested what? I didn't get that.
Earlier I kind of said if we just, for a couple, if we just work together for a little bit, we'll get over it. And I was kind of being a little sappy there. He corrected me. It will take a lengthy amount of time for us working together to beat this entirely. And I agree. And so why not just do it? Let's just buckle down one time. We know the asymptomatic spreading is a thing. And we know that, as Rick has mentioned in a past one, South Korea nailed it. Their style of testing and tracing and all of that. And so I say we need to buckle down and do it. I know it doesn't feel great. We're not going to be happy about it. But if it saves American lives, sign me up.
We know that we're not going to get that kind of national push until Trump isn't president, because he's not pushing for this kind of stuff. Now, Biden has a plan that includes various pushes and contact tracing, but we still don't know if we'll have the national will for that. I kind of doubt it. So we're probably going to have to wait for a vaccine, which is next year at the earliest reasonable, and for maybe for the virus to mutate, or anyway, it's going to take a long time. Now you mentioned hydroxychloroquine, and maybe it's helpful in some cases, but I've got an article from the Sunday's LA Times on what has been working, what's been proven to work, and mortality has dropped by about 75% since the very earliest days back in March. Mortality was 8%. If you had an 8% chance of getting it of dying if you got it back in March. Now your chances are 2%. So they've improved a lot, and what's improved them are things like anticoagulants. COVID makes your blood clotty, so that can give you strokes. So they put you on blood thinner. Lying you on your stomach, it turns out that it's easier to breathe on your stomach. So instead of putting you on a ventilator, they might just put you on your stomach. Some steroids and other anti-inflammatories. There's a whole range of things. Keeping old people way the fuck away from getting infected. All these things together have reduced mortality by a lot. But is one thing like hydroxychloroquine going to drop it all the way to almost nothing? Unlikely. And take zinc and take D. They're inexpensive. They're good for you in general. D is one of the currently the hottest vitamin in terms of people thinking it will help you out. So go ahead and take D. We're inside anyway, like a lot of people, and you make D by being outside in the sun, and if you're inside, you should be taking D anyway. Well,
here's a logic question.
What's that?
Oh, you weren't finished. Did you want to?
One more thing is the masks and the. I agree with you. I've read studies that say that on average you need to inhale about 1,000 COVID particles, virus particles, to really assure yourself of getting sick. So if you're passing through a space and you suck in one COVID particle, your odds of that infecting you are very low. But nobody's really done a study of what the probabilities of like you could inhale a particle, a single droplet that probably has 300 COVID particles in it. There were these movies about 10 years ago called Outbreak and The Hot Zone and pandemic. Like one of them, Gwyneth Paltrow infected the whole frickin' world. And I think that one is the one that had a droplet-sized view.
I hear she gets around.
Yeah. She was on a business trip to China, and she ate in the wrong restaurant, and that eventually, she was married to Matt Damon, and just everything happened. But the deal is, they had a deal where they followed or this might have been the one with Dustin Hoffman and the monkey they had to catch to stop the outbreak. But they showed how somebody sneezes out a particle, and then they followed a particle until it got sucked up by somebody else. And I'm not convinced that you can't have bad luck and inhale a super hot hot droplet that's got a shitload of particles, and that bad luck and low probability events, I would assume, infect a lot of people. Some people get infected by sharing a space with an infected person for an hour while they eat dinner, as they did this study of a Chinese restaurant where people got infected because they had the air conditioning running, and people downwind of the air conditioner were flooded with particles. But I bet there are a significant percentage of people get infected by random bad luck in inhaling one shitty droplet.
Yeah, let me respond. I believe you're done.
Yeah.
Not to step on your point, but this is really one of the main arguments we've had all along. We don't have to go on all night over it, but given that you've just helped my argument again, I'd like to do a little victory lap here. If there are roughly 3.5 million people, I believe it's up to 4 million now, but
5.3 million people who've gotten it in America?
In the U.S.? All right.
Yeah,
so
5.3 million as of today.
So it's maybe 75 to 1 that you're going to get it, 80 to 1 that your chances are of getting it.
Well, no, I mean, because time goes on, the more people get about 50 to 60,000 people are being tested and being shown to have it every day. So we're adding 1 million new people who have it every 2.5 weeks.
Right, but that conversely, fewer of them are dying, so the mortality rate is going down conversely. So what I'm saying is, if you are a normal, healthy person, you're not obese, you don't have diabetes, you don't have a compromised immune system, I still maintain it's about 10,000 to 1 that you're going to get this and die from it. And no, I think mathematically that's a fairly sound thing. If you are an older person with all those comorbidities, then your odds might be 1,000 to 1. But my point is this: in a normal society, when people aren't little frightened little pussies, feeble, meek, hypochondriacs, you would say, I'll take those 10,000 to 1 odds. And you just told me in your little report there that your odds of dying have gone from 8% to 2% with these marvelous treatments we have. Now, if I was told that I have a choice, I can hunker down, I can shut down for really an indefinite period of time, or I can go out and take my chances because it's 5,000 to 1 that I'll get this thing, and then when I do get it, I have a 98% chance of survival.
Well, it's not 5,000 to 1 because it's already 1.5%. More than 1.5% of America has already gotten it, and that's among known cases.
Right.
Another...
No. I was doing the subsequent math. I was saying let's say it's 100 to 1 that you get it, and then 100 to 1 that you die. That's 10,000 to 1, right?
Well, yeah, except it's 2 in 100, so it's 1 in 5,000.
All right, I'll take those odds. That's my point. My point is that if it's 1 in 5,000, then people are being hypochondriacs.
Except that 7 people out of 8 are still showing symptoms.
I know.
After they've recovered.
Yeah, that'll get better, and there are symptoms that are unpleasant. But my point is that you have to take a long view, and that's what modern people, young people like yourself, KEDRO, don't seem to realize. That in previous generations, mankind moved forward. Not that long ago. Your parents' parents, we had things going around.
Right.
And we knew that it was 10,000 to 1, 5,000 to 1, but you took your chances. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Right now, since there are no laws anymore, governors can just say whatever they want, I would say, okay, you can open theme parks if everybody wears a mask and you don't let anybody in over the age of 35. I mean, there are so many situations where you could end the lockdown and people would be fine. They would simply be taking a small risk. And my argument with Rick is, every month that goes by, the risk of you actually dying is going down and down and down. And I'm wondering
because
when it will penetrate his mind.
If you look at the number of people who die every day in the U.S., we had over 1,300 people die today. Or over the past 24 hours, it's overall, it's not. It went down for a while, and now it's hanging in at the 1,000 a day range. Which, if you do 1,000 a day, that's 1/3 of a million over a year.
And you just hit on a point I'm curious about there, Lance.
Hold on, let's. Yeah. Okay, so the deal is that. The number of people dying of cancer and heart attacks every day averages about 2,000 apiece. So for a while, back in April, COVID was the deadliest thing going in America. Now it's number 3 on an average day. But that doesn't let COVID off the hook, because these are people who didn't have to die if we'd fucking done better with our fucking shit. And one more thing is that life was cheaper 100 years ago. Fucking average lifespan was 40, though that's a little bullshitty because of child mortality. But the deal is we didn't have seat belts. I'm talking about younger viewers won't even remember what seatbelts were. They were one fucking thing in your car that went across like on an airplane. That didn't have the shoulder strap. Nobody fucking wore them. Dashboards were unpadded. There were no airbags until what, the early 90s? And we fucking just, I worked in a bar where everybody got drunk, drove off the road, punched through their windshields. There was always, the first bar I ever worked in, there was always one customer walking around with their head wrapped in gauze because the previous week they punched through their windshield on the way back to Longmont. And people live longer, people live healthier, we're more risk averse because life is more valuable because we have more life to lose if we get sick. I'm 60, and I'd be fucking close to done in 1910, maybe.
We also have more data compared to them, too. A lot more data than past generations. We can see these invisible ghosts better than they ever could.
Well, my point is that I don't want Americans to get to the point where they're not willing to take a 10,000 to 1 risk. I'm sorry. I realize that times have changed and we have more data and we'd like to stay healthier, but I don't want Americans cowering in their basements. I want them to go out and take those risks. What?
The president does that for us, so we don't have to worry about that.
Well, that's a cheap shot, KEDRO, and that doesn't get you any points.
Yes, it does. Our show is all about cheap shots.
All right,
let's go.
I just want to say, I practice what I preach. I'm going out as much as possible. I'm being with people as much as possible without masks. I'm in perfect health. All the people I know are in good health. And I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I'm taking the risk.
All right.
There is a 1 in 10,000.
Okay, this is all a good segue into KEDRO's specialty. What I think your main interest is in getting out the vote.
Absolutely.
So we should talk about that.
Yeah.
And a couple things come up. One is, my neighborhood of Twitter went fucking crazy today, like with joy that a reasonable VP candidate had been chosen. And this, even before that, in the aggregate of national polls, Biden is up by 8.3%, which is roughly double what Hillary was up at the same time during her campaign. And the electoral vote count looks pretty good for Biden. But I mean, the elections generally tighten, but we should just talk about the whole landscape. Like, can Trump pull it out? We should talk about how to vote. Like the craziness going on with fucking over the post office, the whole thing.
Ooh. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I'm very happy about this. Part of how Rick found me is. We talked on Twitter at first, and then I decided to make a voting info awareness page and a voter registration push page, and kind of a data-driven effort to just make people aware. On Twitter, Rick knows, Lance, I don't think you're on there, but you can imagine Twitter is just what you think. It's everyone has an asshole, everyone has an opinion, and because of that, a lot of people want to be first. They want to be first to say something, and they're not going to get it right. So if people are giving 80% of the truth out there, then we're going to be misinformed when we go to the polls. So one of the big things is with voter registration, signing your ballot for a mail-in ballot, right? A lot of people are going to forget to do that. Suddenly their vote doesn't count, or they don't know how to track their ballot. They don't know that through HAVA 2002 that they have a right to track their ballot, and their county clerks, their local officials have to give them either a website or a phone number to do that. On my page, I posted the links
tracking. What is tracking your ballot?
For your mail-in absentee ballot, to ensure that it's counted, to see what process it's at in being counted.
And LA has a fucking great county clerk. I forget his name, but I mean, our kid didn't get her absentee ballot. We reached out to him, a guy who's in charge of voting for more than 8 million people, and he got back to us personally. The guy. Anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so a big thing is just that, well, let me ask you guys this. From 2012 to 2016, which group increased in voter turnout?
I'm losing you.
He asked, KEDRO asked us from 2012 to 2016, which group increased in voter turnout? And
Hispanics.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, age range, excuse me. Let's do age range for this one. So which age group increased from 2012 to 2016?
Maybe, I know young people are always accused of not being very votey, so, and you had two uncharismatic candidates, the two least popular candidates in a long time. I'm going to say no groups increased.
Lance?
Hey, I'm going to say young people. Are you using the internet up there? I'm losing. I'm losing
That was
you
a curveball.
guys.
Hold on. Like our director said, and if you can't hear him, said 40 to 60 increased.
It was millennials. Millennials were the only group to see an increase from 2012 to 2016. And so
that's what I guessed. I got that right.
You did.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and yet
So millennials are like from their 20s into their 30s. What are millennials?
Roughly 20 to 32, 33. I'm kind of an older millennial. I'm on the older cusp there. Okay. And so what that means, though, is that they were the lowest quantity of voters. So they increased, every other group decreased, and still the one increasing is the one that's voting the least. We have to be like Australia. We should have a 93% clip of voters out there. We should all be active in it. We should be engaged. And that's a big part of it for me. I want everyone to be registered to vote, no matter how you vote. But I prefer, of course, that people go blue. But really, this is a page that's for liberals, for Democrats, things like that. But I want everyone to be active in this process. We all should have a voice.
Do you want to plug your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I guess I took too long, huh? At votinginfohq.com. Thanks. I actually just crossed 5,000 followers today, and
nice.
Yeah, that was a nice little treat there.
And so, is the right way to vote, given current conditions, and say you're more wimpy than Lance is, the right way to vote is to request your ballot by mail if you can, which most states you can, as soon as possible. Exactly. You can put in your request now. You won't receive your ballot till after the national conventions.
Right.
Then fill out your ballot as soon as possible. Then take the U.S. mail out of the return leg and drop it off at an official drop box or polling place.
You nailed it. You know this better than most, and it's because we need to remove the USPS from the equation. If they're strained, let's help them out, even just for the sake of normal mail delivery, but obviously because so much is at stake here with the election. And so dropping it off at a local ballot box, a drop box, is key. And if nobody knows where to start with what Rick just said, try vote.org. Try iwillvote.com. Try anything like that. Type in register to vote in Google and explore, or find me on my page and send me a message too.
Lance, you got a thing to say?
No, I mean, as a conservative, I don't have any problem at all with absentee ballots. We've had them for decades. If my understanding is that in order to get KEDRO, your camera's off.
Your camera went away.
Yeah.
What happened? Sorry.
My understanding is that to get an absentee ballot, you have to have some kind of ID and proof that you are who you say you are. And if you're dropping it off yourself personally instead of giving it to a Democrat activist to drop off for you, then we're sure that it's you and we're sure that you're dropping it off. That's fine. I wish everyone would do that. But my objection is that there are Democrat governors that are mailing out millions of ballots to people's homes or where there's and that there are Democrat activists going around harvesting these ballots for people, and there's just recently the Democrats, by the way, were the ones that passed the law that you don't have to provide ID when you go to the polling place. I've never heard of such a thing, but that was 10 years ago. Then the other thing that they've done in this bill, when Trump, the poor guy, was trying to get some money for relief for people that are unemployed, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats, stuck in a little codicil that you don't have to verify your signature when you vote, that you don't even have to have your own signature, and it doesn't need to be verified. So my problem is that I want it to be an honest election with as little chance as possible for fraud. So all those wonderful things we had in place, like having to provide a signature and an ID, and having to present your ballot to the polling place your own self, either through the mail or in person, those are things the Democrats want to get rid of so that they can cheat. So that's my problem. If you want to have people, if you want millions of people going through the motions of honestly requesting absentee ballots and providing reasonable proof of ID, more power to you.
That's, I mean, instead of arguing the points like that signature thing, I'll just agree with the last thing you said.
All right, should we move on?
Yeah, I got one thing, because KEDRO mentioned people like to be first. I was very proud of myself for coming up with this stupid thing, and I want to claim to be first on it, that the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris couple name should be Camel Joe. And Camel Joe are better than the guy who grabs your camel toe.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Thanks.
By the way, I was going to research Kamala Harris so that I'd have, lots of information to attack you with, but I got caught trying to find what she looked like when she was dating Willie Brown, and I have to say, not really. She was hot. I can see how she could fuck her way to the presidency. This is she was really great looking.
You know what's wild,
She's
Lance?
still not bad. What?
The wildest thing is she doesn't have to. She's qualified.
She's qualified. Yeah. Do you like her policies? I heard the president say this, so I can't take credit for it. She is against fracking, which is what made America the the energy powerhouse of the world. She wants to stop that. She wants to give free medical care to illegal aliens. She wants to drastically decrease our military at a time when China and Russia are drastically building up theirs. She, what other weird thing does she want to do? She put 1,900 people in prison for smoking marijuana, which is something she's admitted publicly to doing. So she has no ethics whatsoever. Of Attorney General, and then
You
the
didn't get her
Democrat.
that position. She won an election. It's an elected office.
If Willie Brown supports you, and the Democrat Party controls California, they can pick anybody and make them senator or district attorney general. The Democrat Party runs this state, and through a combination of cheating and sneakiness and horrible things, and they just picked her and they said, okay, you be the senator. So she's not qualified at all. She's virtually empty. She's nothing. She has no ethics. Her policies are outrageous and foolish. And God help us all, because if Biden gets in, he's a corpse of a man that may not survive a year, and then we'll
got
have
him on a
President Kamala
bicycle.
Harris.
Like, yeah, so, like you compare Biden, who, how dare you diss a guy with hair transplants like me? But the guy can ride a bike. I've listened to a lot of Biden, and I know he's got a stutter. So like, oh, I don't want to get into this thing again. But like, he doesn't sound out of it to me. And he's only what, 3.5 years older than Trump, and maybe weighs 2/3 what Trump weighs. I don't know.
By the way, KEDRO, I'm curious. Oh, am I interrupting you? Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, just one thing. The most surprising thing I found out about Kamala Harris is she's 5'2".
Really?
Unless my Wikipedia says so. So maybe that's wrong. Maybe somebody plugged it in there just to fuck with things. But I
think she's taller than that. She has to be.
I don't know. Anyway, if she is, that would be a weird thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, she's not really electable either. That's the other weird thing. She was one of the first candidates to drop out.
Well, people went
at Twitter,
conservative Twitter went crazy because she dropped out after being attacked by Tulsi Gabbard in a Democratic debate. But I mean, really, when you look at how she's positioned, you don't lose people to lawlessness because she comes from a law and order background. I mean, she's got. I mean, there's no VP candidate who wouldn't be attacked. Obviously, it's part of the deal. But just because she was driven out of the presidential race doesn't mean she's unelectable. I think she draws more of the fabled independents or disgruntled conservatives than she loses liberals off the other end.
Compare her to Sarah Palin? Wow, that's an interesting one. So, I mean, even just in interviews, right? It's almost like the narrative that Lance, you're trying to spin of Joe Biden being the crypt keeper from, Tales from the Crypt or whatever, right? And that just the fact of saying it doesn't make it true, of course, right? And so it's kind of like the opposite, where Sarah Palin was a complete nothing burger, right? And just an empty vessel of nothing. I can see Russia from my house, and then we had to figure maybe on a certain island in Alaska you could see Russia. Why are we having that convo ever? And so, yeah. So Harris has, again, she comes from, Rick just said it, the law and order background, but she was able to turn politician. She knows how to be stately. If you saw her in the investigations lately with when she was on the Senate investigation panel grilling people, I would love to see Sarah Palin go at that level. And she has another gear that we haven't seen in a little bit, and it's nice. Hillary Clinton didn't go to that gear, or maybe because she was presidential and not vice presidential, she didn't. But Kamala is going to go for the throat with Vice President Pence.
I also suspect she's charismatic. Like her face, like she's got a lot of like normal expressions but she has a lot of them. Like Trump often gets caught out like making weird expressions, but she makes a lot of like happy expressions and committed I feel like that kind of stuff, like charisma, if she indeed turns out to have it, goes a long way.
Yeah, and it's better that she is not Justice Department lead, separate from all of those Law and Order past potential issues, and instead let her flex the Law and Order strength through the cabinet. And so, yeah, she absolutely is going to be charismatic. She has leadership skills. She can stand to Putin and not back down. She can stand up to any world leader and shake their hand or give them an elbow now in COVID times. But absolutely, she's multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see that she got this.
So, by the way, I would just like to mention something. I don't want to get into the whole Sarah Palin thing, but I do want to say that she never actually said, I can see Russia from my house. It turns out that's something that Tina Fey said when she was impersonating Sarah Palin.
That's even
and a lot of millennials don't realize that Saturday Night Live isn't the actual person. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I can't predict who's going to win the election, but I can assure you of one thing, and it gets into a stupid thing where you say, my guy's going to win. No, my guy's going to win. But I can tell you that the Democrats have lost the law and order issue. It wouldn't matter if they put Mike Tyson as the vice presidential candidate, because the average American sees that Democrats are soft on the riots and soft on crime, and there's no way you can get that back. You can't win that issue. So if you're going to win the presidency, it'll have to be on something other than law and order.
I might agree with you, because every time I turn on Fox to see what's being covered, most of the time when I turn on to Fox prime time, they're bemoaning the chaos of the cities, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's overstated, but it doesn't matter if you're a consumer of conservative media and that media is telling you that that's what's going on.
Well, actually, the New York Times wrote an article this week that said that that New York is basically dying. The city of New York is dying. It went on and on about how the crime, the disease, the virus, and basically incompetent leadership of New York has driven people out of the city. The tax base, because the taxes are too high, and they're not getting the service from the police, and so there and occasionally there are Democrat media that have mentioned that we have more crime in Chicago than we do in third world countries that are narco states. So there are glimmerings. The other thing is, you can't deny what you yourself see. This is the thing Democrats don't understand. Because you control the media, you think you can control what people think unless they walk out the door and they see their city burning or falling apart, which most people in modern cities are seeing happen. Now, in Detroit,
I don't think that's people's experience. I think people see cities that are that are less busy than they were, and a lot of people suffering because of COVID. But in terms of like the breakdown of fucking society, I don't think most people see that when they fucking walk.
Well, yeah. I mean, since the riots, I'm speaking specifically. If you were in a city, and it would have to be a Democrat-run city because the Republican cities were orderly. But if you were in a Democrat-run city, then more than likely, if it was a very big city, you've seen some neighborhoods getting burned and looted by Democrat rioters. So my point is if you enjoy that, if it doesn't bother you going through a neighborhood where something's been burned or there's a wreck, a hulk. I drove through LA during the riots, and I saw cars on fire or had been burned. I saw broken windows. I saw people recovering from and frightened from the riots. In LA, they were fairly mild. So if you live in a Democrat city, you know that the Democrats have lost the law and order issue, regardless of what CNN propagandists tell you.
I just don't. I mean, I don't know. I mostly don't agree with that. Trump wants to send federal personnel, I guess troops, to Albuquerque as part of Operation Legend or Legend, and I'm from Albuquerque, so I'm like, I wanted to come up with a nasty tweet about that, like, and then I looked up the crime rate in Albuquerque, and it turns out, yes, Albuquerque is a fucking hellhole. But it's not because of, I mean, Albuquerque, New Mexico's always been a poor ass state in the, like 48th, 49th and stuff, and I still have family there, and they say it's fucking, like, it's like Breaking Bad a little bit. But I don't think it's because Democrats run the city. I think it's because it's just the long-term history of that state. Sir, yeah, okay, so all right, so our director is defending Palin, saying she was governor of Alaska with an 85% approval rating, but then she quit as governor, right? She bailed out, and I gotta like, weird shit happens in small elections, and Alaska has one of our smaller populations, and case in point is I'm an elected official. I am on the Studio City Neighborhood Council, elected by, I don't know, I think I got 70 votes, maybe I got 90, I don't know, but I'm a frickin' lunatic, and I got elected. So just because somebody gets elected doesn't mean that they're frickin' competent.
They've had the same representative for decades, I believe, the same single House of Representatives member there. So another thing too with Sarah Palin, I mean, when she got exposed to the national spotlight, she exposed herself. I mean, that was a big thing. Maybe small town politics, maybe smaller government, she dominates that. And Alaska overwhelmingly loves Republicans and will stay Republican for a long time, probably forever. And so, to fling somebody like that onto the big stage, I mean, it's not easy for anyone. She did her best, but also I remember an instance when she couldn't name a magazine she read when she claimed she did.
Yeah, that Katie Couric moment.
Yeah, like she didn't do herself favors, and she created a narrative where now I can't even tell the difference between what's fallacy and what's real, and that doesn't do her favors.
What's in like Maya Rudolph is the designated Kamala Harris, and that's a different dynamic because Tina Fey was basically a hostile witness, and Maya Rudolph is going to be a pro Kamala portrayer.
Yeah, and SNL is more partial. They're more left leaning. They probably won't savage them the same way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have time for one more subject. Did you want to do Cardi B?
Sure.
All right. Well, there was a big hubbub about Cardi B this week.
And Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay. And I didn't know who she was, and so I saw my first Cardi B video about a month ago, and as I was watching it, I noticed that all the women, all the dancers are obese, and I I thought to myself, well, where are all the thin dancers? And then I realized Cardi B may have eaten them. So that's my Cardi B response
All
right
right,
there.
so what Lance is talking about is this song "Wet Ass Pussy" or WAP or WAP or whatever that came out and caused a stir. But we don't need to debate that. But you brought up the point that Americans in general we are old people, and during our heyday, our prime, when we were in our teens and our 20s, it was the 70s and 80s, and people were skinnier. There was a lot of jogging, and there was a shitload of cocaine, and people, there were right now 2/3 of adult Americans are overweight or obese. Back then, it was maybe a quarter of everybody. Um, and that's what we were used to. Battle of the Network Stars on ABC was they took every star from their channel and they had them compete in other and in sports, and like everybody got wet and nobody was wearing a bra and there was lots of jiggling. Everybody was skinny, wearing those little silk shorts. So America in general, and people, I see it in, like, I watched a couple teen movies and the lead characters are heavier. People are just heavier and media reflects that. And um, you know, I mean, the one thing, and I shouldn't even talk about this. Nope, I can't talk about it.
Ah, come on, Rick. You talked about everything else.
Well, like, I'm a little intimidated by bigger people, in that, like, I mean, there's a lot of, we live in the twerking era. There's a lot of twerking in WAP or WAP. There's a lot of butt jiggling, which implies, it implies doggy style. And my years of having sex with a lot of different people, well, they never happened. I did okay compared to the way people do now, because it was the 70s, but it wasn't like it wasn't hundreds of people. But I do wonder about having sex in the doggy style era with bigger butts. Like, how would I even do? Would I have the reach? Would I have? So,
yeah, how much play do you have down there?
What?
How much play do you have down there?
I mean, for my era, I had enough. But, like, given, like, the current conditions, I don't know.
That was a good line. Given my era, I had enough.
It's an arms race, for every change in the hormone. Yeah. All right. So, KEDRO, you've got to respond to this now. Now that you're on the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a nerd, as you can tell from how I talk, maybe, and Rick knows from my profile. But I don't know. There's a certain comfortability that comes with us getting bigger, right? That's part of it. Instead of me going out to the bar, going out, walking around, talking to girls, meeting people when I'm interacting and maybe volunteering with friends, or I go help someone's mom and I meet their cousin, right? Instead, I can just jump on an app and get a date, right? So I don't even have to move to get a date. That's kind of weird. Another angle of it is the Kardashians. There's certain people, and I can't even name, China, Black China, people like that, who are thick, THICC, right?
Nicki Minaj.
Yep, exactly. They got it going on, right? So
Iggy Azalea.
Exactly. So now workouts are geared to make yourself bigger in certain areas. For women, they'll shape themselves. They'll do workouts to reshape themselves in a way. And so it's not just necessarily an obesity, but there's even certain African cultures where you're regarded as you're more regarded well the bigger you are. It speaks to wealth, it speaks to prowess, it speaks to family history, things like that. And so there's a lot of different angles that could be coming into play here.
I lost you after you said there are certain African cultures, so I don't know if the audience lost you too.
I don't know.
No, we heard.
I think it's Mozambique, but I don't want to speak off too far.
That's okay.
Or Mauritania, but I don't remember offhand. I would have to look at it. But yeah, so so there's a couple angles there where thickness is regarded as like a royalty.
And the era of flat asses was maybe a historic. It was crazy how flat the asses were in the 70s. No, people didn't have, well, especially the white, like Charlie's Angels. There wasn't an ass on Charlie's Angels. But if you go back 10 years before that, if you look at Elvis movies, people again were heftier than they were in the 70s. So we grew up in a historical anomaly. Also, with people being bigger, there's a certain democratization of sex, where in the 70s you had to be cool to get laid. It was only for like the cool jocks and the cheerleaders. And now there's, I think people who want to have relationships are less, held back by looks of a particular type. Like, to have that 1970s flat acidness, you had to be either doing a shitload of coke or you just couldn't fucking eat anything. And now maybe thanks to more realistic standards, people can accept the bodies they're in. I mean, body acceptance is one of the things that is one of the legs of the many-legged stool of progressivism right now.
All right. I've seen those apps where you swipe right or left, and they to me they depend more on looks, because all you have is a picture of the person sometimes and their age. So I don't know what to think about that. KEDRO, what do you mean?
So looks are deceiving, right? And are you familiar with the term catfishing?
Oh yeah, that's where you explain it.
Yeah, so catfishing would be where if I set up a profile online and I choose an image of, I don't know, Ryan Gosling or some A-list celebrity, but more a no name. I choose some random model image and I say I'm Joe Schmo and I pose as him, and then when you meet me, you meet KEDRO. And you're like, wait, you don't look anything, you're not blonde and 6'6" and all that. So not only that, but there's ways where you can change lighting, you can do an angle with your shot, and you can change the way you look to where you present yourself as your best form in your profile picture, but you're never really at that best form in real life, maybe, because we have to live, right? And so, there's a certain, yes, it can matter with looks. Yes, some people obviously, yeah, that's them, that's what they look like, that's obviously who they are. But then there's a lot of people who kind of manipulate their image, and understandably, like Rick had said, body acceptance, things like this are a big issue, right? So it's very weird. It's very weird.
I actually have a...
Overwhelmingly, they look like their pictures because you want to vet, right? You want to create a conversation. You want to have dialogue. You don't want, unless you're just utterly thirsty and desperate, you want to try to create some kind of a dialogue to maybe probe a little bit, ask a question that maybe, maybe it speaks to a deeper level. I know when it's just a hookup, that's not the way, but I'm also a little bit more of a romantic, you guys.
Yeah. Also, like in the 70s, it was not possible to move into a relationship or court via typing. You had to go up to people and talk to them, at your high school or college, yep, or place of business, or you had to talk on the phone. Now you can frickin', you can text, and I feel like that it would have been an advantage for me, who was kind of a nerdy mess, but I was okay with words. I could have typed my way into the occasional hand job, I believe.
And in that, you can author your own narrative better.
Yeah,
Right.
you can come to your own defense.
Yeah, exactly. I can, right when I'm about to send something, I can say, oh, no, let's tweak that a little bit. Whereas in person, like you just said, I'd be blurting it out, and it's a different response.
Right, so we've
Yeah.
gone 2 hours. It's been I've liked it.
All right. All right.
Hey.
All right. Very good.
KEDRO, thank you.
No, thank both of you, sincerely. Lance and Rick, this has been fun, and JD too. This has been really fun, and I appreciate both of your perspectives, honestly.
It was a very unyelly show tonight.
I can yell if I have to.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of feel like the more like it looks like with the more certain the future looks like, and I know there's still a lot of uncertainty, but I guess the more optimism from me, the less I feel defensive and yell.
That's fair.
Well, that's happened, but I thought about it because we have much better shows now, I think, in terms of thoughts, because we have a rule that we don't interrupt each other, and that has really calmed everything down and allowed people to feel like if you're being interrupted, you get frustrated. And so I think that just that one rule has really helped.
Okay.
And I also think that there was a point where we were getting very hostile to one another, you and I, Rick. And I know I thought about how I didn't want our relationship, our friendship, to be affected by our vociferous differences intellectually. So maybe we've just matured during the course of the show.
Or the quarantine.
I know I've gotten a fuck of a lot older over the course of the show.
That's true. All right, KEDRO, one last point before we go, because I know the audience is dying to know this. I am. Yeah. What kind of a name is KEDRO, for Christ's sake?
It's a nickname. My real name's Kevin.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, then why do you call yourself KEDRO? Where'd you get that?
Because I'm catfishing online.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Not a good explanation.
Hey, thanks.
All right, very good. All right, see you.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.